Dish. Welcome to the Decatur Dish. Had my mic muted there on Atlanta News First Plus. We are joined as always every Tuesday with our media partners at Decatur Dish, and I have the pleasure of having next to me the one and only Dan Wisenhunt. And this is a show we like to do where we talk about the latest news that's coming out of DeKalb County, and there has been a lot of it this past week as we head into February. Dan, happy Tuesday to you. How you doing?
Happy Tuesday to you, Maria. I'm good. Good to be here.
We have had stories that have kind of been ongoing for some time, continued discussions, and some on the more bizarre side. So we have a fun episode for you in store, but let's start with the big topic that's continued into 2025, and that is the water rate hike. There is continued discussion within the commission now to involve the public and public opinion and kind of really pursue addressing water infrastructure needs and the city's problem around addressing continuous water main breaks and infrastructure-related issues, and that's now boiled down to how much can we put on residents to increase their water rates to help us toward these repairs.
Well, that's right, Maria. The county hasn't really raised its water rates in a while. I believe the last time they did it was 2022, and even then it wasn't enough. Meanwhile, there are water mains breaking left and right throughout the county, and there was a proposal before CEO Mike Thurmond left. He proposed some sort of rate hike. It wasn't spelled out at the time. We've gone from a 6% rate hike. Been told that's not going to be enough. Then we were told perhaps 7 or 8, and now we're doing what's called a 10 by 10. So it's 10% rate increase every year on your water bill, the bill that you pay every month. Although I think in DeKalb County it's billed bi-monthly. Don't hold me to that. As first reported by our media partners at Atlanta News First, the average monthly water bill in DeKalb County hovers at around $70 by 2034 if these increases are implemented 10% every year. That's going to go up to almost $200 a month for the average DeKalb County resident. It's not going to shock any of our viewers to hear that people aren't happy about that. People are asking why these investments weren't made much sooner, and this is going to be a very tough sell. The new CEO, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, has had some public meetings trying to get community input and support. It's going to come down to whatever the county commission wants to approve. I will say we are the farthest out we can possibly be from another election. I think if we were bumping up on another county commission election, this might be harder still. The reality is this stuff has to get fixed, and it's not going to pay for itself. Ultimately, that falls to the ratepayers, the residents, to take care of it. The question I have is water infrastructure is one thing. We also have a sewer infrastructure problem where we're under a consent decree to fix all of our sewer capacity issues. And what I want to know is this increase going to be used to pay any of the fines that are owed for missing our deadlines to fix sewer stuff? That's important information, too. I don't know that we've been given a satisfactory answer to that. There's a lot of trust problems within DeKalb County. People do not trust the government fundamentally to handle these issues, and with good reason, because they haven't been handling them. And so now CEO Lorraine Cochran-Johnson has the tall task of bringing this rate increase to taxpayers and trying to convince them and convince her former fellow commissioners to approve this. The only thing I think that she has going for her right now in terms of getting it approved is that it is so far out from the next election. But even still, we're starting to hear people on the commission say, well, maybe we need more time to study this problem. So there is some inertia there. There's some desire, I think, among commissioners to perhaps kick the can on this. But we could see a vote on this very, very soon, and I'm going to be interested to see how that vote shakes out and what kind of strings are attached to that increase.
And important for the residents of DeKalb County and for the folks that are hearing this news to know that they can get involved. Decatur has put out links for you for the public portions of these meetings and ways that you can voice your concerns, your thoughts, maybe your agreement even. That is for you on DecaturDish.com. I want to move into this other story because it is causing quite a buzz, and I want to talk about it. DeKalb School Board now investing millions of dollars into office spaces.
That seems to be the case. DeKalb County Schools back in November quietly purchased the old Kroger office building on Park Lake in Tucker. What's interesting is that building at one point had been slated for some kind of a mixed-use development project. We don't really know the story of why that fell through. I'm sure we'll get eventually. But the DeKalb County School Board purchased this. It was a 6-0 vote. They spent $6.5 million on it. They discussed it in a legal closed-door meeting, which is called an executive session. In Georgia, the law allows government bodies to enter into these closed-door executive session meetings to discuss things like personnel issues, litigation, and real estate purchases. So in November, they had an executive session. They talked about it, I think, for less than 30 seconds, said, hey, we're going to buy this. They didn't say what they were going to use it for. They didn't discuss the purchase price. The board voted on it. That was done. Important context for the viewers to know. There was a different school board in November. There's 3 new members now that weren't there when this was voted on. So keep that in mind. One of the new school board members, Awet Iyasu, who's a former Clarkston City Council person, put what I assume was intended to be a positive post on his Facebook page saying, I got to tour this new facility today, this property we bought for DeKalb County, and we're going to use it for administrative offices. And the reaction, rather than being that's great news, was generally, you did what now? What's going on? Because the other important bit of context is DeKalb County Schools has been telling the community for months that they don't have the money to pay for things like the Druid Hills High modernization project or the Cross Keys High modernization project. They've come out and said there's inflation and and in fairness, that project, we're talking about a difference of $50 million to $80 million. $6.5 million wasn't going to be enough to make up that difference. But the optics are certainly not ideal when the school board is telling everyone, and it's not just modernization projects. There are schools in this district that don't have adequate heating and cooling right now. There are schools in this district where a lot of the students are in portable classrooms because they don't have enough space. There are a lot of capital and facilities needs in this district that have been neglected for a very long time. And for the DeKalb School District to seemingly find $6.5 million to buy this property and to do it in a way, I mean, it wasn't even on the agenda. Nothing about this was on the agenda. It was only brought out during that meeting, and it was recorded in the minutes after the fact. And we frankly didn't know about it until Awet Iyasu posted it on Facebook. The vice chair, Allison Gevertz, also made a post with the district statement. Will not shock you to hear that she got a lot of criticism for doing that as well. So there are a lot of DeKalb County schools parents that are not happy right now, Maria.
Yeah, a lot of discussion, I'm sure, involving the community, and that's why you and I come up here and we try to facilitate this and break down exactly what's been happening, because like you said, this has been going on since before November, and we're kind of bringing it forward as more and more folks around the community are talking about it. Speaking of, I want to get your take on this story, because there are residents in DeKalb County who recently got a letter. And mind you, these residents already live near a cemetery, but now they are getting a letter of a proposed crematorium on their property. What do you think?
I think this topic ended up being way more fascinating than I thought it would be at the outset. I learned it's sometimes when you sit down to report a story, you keep pulling thread, and then the thread just keeps unraveling and unraveling, and eventually you gotta cut it so you can publish the dang story. So I thought this story was going to be 200-300 words tops. It ended up being close to 1,000-word story. covered a lot of different angles. So this cemetery is a really neat piece of property in DeKalb County. It's the Washington Memorial Garden Cemetery. It's on Jordan Lane. It was started by a woman named Toby Grant, who back in her day was a local celebrity. She was a clairvoyant, allegedly. She was a very popular person. She created that cemetery. It's been in the community for a long time. Fast forward, a new group has, this Lincoln group has taken over the cemetery and this business in general. And they have decided that they want to offer cremation services to residents. And there's some laws and stipulations around where you can put a crematory. Apparently, there's a piece of it that you already have to be offering funeral services anyway. There was some question about whether they were going to only do cremations for families that use the cemetery. They say they are not. They say they are. They're not going to take off-site clients, which is a big deal because if you're taking clients that aren't your clients, it's increasing the traffic and the volume and the output from the crematorium. So to be clear, they're only, as of right now, planning to use this crematorium for their current clients. They're going to build it basically in the office building that's there now. They're going to transform that to offer it, so they're not going to build this right next to somebody's house, let's say, which is one of the concerns. One thing I found out in the midst of reporting this is we actually already have a crematorium that's not that far from it. It's over at A.S. Turner Funeral Homes, and it's by the hospital.
In Decatur.
In Decatur, that's right. And I talked to the crematorium president, and I struggled to leave stuff out because it was such a great interview, and this guy was a quote machine. He was really just the kind of guy you love to interview. And I called him up, and he said, "You didn't even know that crematorium was there, did you?" Because he runs it so low-key, and he talked about he had to put a fireproof glass in place that cost $6,000. He had to jump through all these hoops. Interestingly, though, there's been a crematorium in our area for well over a decade. It's been operating. Nobody's known about it because it hasn't really generated a whole lot of negative impact on the neighborhood. Again, just talking about the thread that I pulled with this story, I learned that there's not really a whole lot of regulation in Georgia. I know that's going to shock people around crematorium emissions. People have concerns about the things that process can emit. Obviously, there's the carbon dioxide, which is an environmental concern due to global warming, climate change, what have you. The mercury filings in people's teeth apparently are a concern, and there's some debate about how much of an environmental impact that has. The environmental regulations are not particularly strong. The studies are not as definite, I think, as some people would like them to be. I think we have to acknowledge and address that there's a taboo around death in general, and people just don't like thinking about it. I personally don't, but it's part of life. And the idea that you're going to be expanding an industry related to the funeral business so close to your
People's
home,
homes. Yep.
it just providing a very present reminder of your own mortality, I suppose. So there's going to be a meeting on February 10th. It's going to be via Zoom. I'm told there's going to be quite the turnout for this Zoom meeting. A lot of people have opinions on it. We are going to try to cover it. I've got a conflict that night, but I'm hoping either we can send somebody or maybe our media partners at A&F can jump in and watch and see what happens. But we'll try to find the recording in any case. And keep you posted on what happens. But I cannot emphasize enough. One thing the A.S. Turner guy told me that I asked him, why do you do this on site? And he said, because if I do it off site, I can't guarantee that the remains that you're getting back are actually the remains of your loved ones. So it's and nothing else to keep liability concerns to a minimum, because you know the remains you're getting are the ones that you sent them. So go check it out. I'm not normally a big promoter of stories that I write because I do a lot of work, but I was really proud of this because I went down a lot of rabbit holes with it. Go check it out. It's fascinating. There's a lot more I could write a whole book about the death industry, I suppose, but I think it's a really interesting subject that not a lot of people know about or think about.
And an issue that I mean, we can all imagine if you receive a letter saying we're thinking at least about building a crematorium very close to your doorstep, you're going to feel a type of a way about it. So there is that open discussion. If you have residential concerns, you are a resident, you have a loved one in that area, please do check that out on DecaturDish.com. We also have more information for you on Atlanta News First. All right, keeping in theme with this conversation, as we are continuing to talk, I want to ask if you live in a very specific area of Lithonia, Meadow Vista Drive. Maybe you've seen these birds around, and it's an unusual sight. Vultures roosting around and being a little menacing to this neighborhood in DeKalb County. Our Atlanta News First Adam Murphy reports on this story.
I get a rock every now and then just to scare them away, but other than that, that's the only thing I know to do.
Richard Lucane is on the verge of going insane over a flock of birds taking over his Lithonia neighborhood. No, not that bird. These birds.
They're always just circling right here in the back, circling in the back. And you got my dog going crazy.
Lucane and his neighbors said dozens of massive vultures began roosting on their roofs, cars, and trees a couple of months ago.
The main concern is the damage that they can do to our roofs. And they just sit there and land, and you can, on the inside, you can hear them pecking loudly.
It turns out the DeKalb County landfill is less than 5 miles away from the neighborhood, and a wastewater treatment plant is even closer. So could that explain what looks like a scene out of Alfred Hitchcock's film, The Birds?
It's probably not due to the landfill. I mean, they probably have a good food source at the landfill, but that landfill is not, the reason that they're all of a sudden seeing lots of them there.
Emily Rushton with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Division said the vultures are likely migrating south and have found a temporary spot to roost.
Everybody roof line has poop all over it, so if the rain doesn't wash it off, they have to pay money to get that fixed and treated.
Some of the vultures have even encroached upon Lucane's front door, seen here on his doorbell camera.
What you can do is what we call hazing, which is basically just trying to bother the birds and scare them away and harass them.
Vultures are federally protected, but if they stick around, they can be destructive, damaging roof shingles, car paint, and window caulking.
Something that actually works really well that's pretty simple is a laser pointer. Like right at dusk when they're coming into roost, you can take a laser pointer and shine it around, and that'll really bother them.
If all else fails, the USDA Wildlife Services can provide federal assistance to help remove them.
We're concerned about our roofs, our safety, our kids, our pets. We want them to be protected, but we want them to go away.
Adam Murphy, Atlanta News First.
Vultures. Who would have thought?
That's
February.
real nasty. That's a very, I would be concerned if giant metaphors started resting on top of my house too. That would bother me tremendously. It just goes to show you what a wacky county we live in sometimes, and would have never guessed that vultures would roost en masse in a residential neighborhood like that. I hope they get that worked out, because that's real creepy.
Yeah, it's an interesting story to hear about, but then when it's affecting you, and like you've heard from these residents, it becomes very serious really quickly. So we hope that those residents have some sort of resolution. We did hear, as Adam reported, that they're likely migrating, as experts are saying. So hopefully this is temporary.
I would be investigating jinxes, karma. I would be going to supernatural explanations of a bunch of vultures landed on my house. I feel bad for them. Hope they can get it resolved.
Seriously, this is the Decatur Dish. We air live on Atlanta News First Plus every Tuesday, but the news never stops, and both Decatur-ish and Atlanta News First, we are in your communities telling the stories that are impacting you. So Dan, where can people connect with Decatur-ish?
They can get our news at decatorish.com. That's the main website. Go to locallysourcednews.com to sign up for our daily email to make sure you don't miss any of our stories and to make sure you don't miss episodes of this wonderful show. Get the Atlanta News First Plus app. You can download that on your phone or on your streaming devices. It's free. You can catch this show on there, and you can catch all the other great content produced by our media partners over at Atlanta News First.
With that, we will see you next Tuesday for another installment of Decatur-ish. Make it a great day.